Have you ever noticed how the world never seems to stop moving? The noise of traffic, the endless stream of news, the constant notifications on your phone. It feels like life is pulling you in 1,000 directions at once. Most people believe that power comes from speed, from ambition, from chasing more and more. But here's the paradox. The greatest strength a human being can ever discover is found not in motion, not in noise, but in stillness. Stillness isn't weakness. It's not laziness. It's not escape. It's the quiet ground beneath all storms, the space where clarity finally rises after the fog of confusion clears. Think of a lake on a windy day. Its surface ripples, distorts, even crashes against the shore. But when the wind calms, the water turns into a perfect mirror, reflecting the mountains, the trees, the infinite sky. Your mind is that lake, and only in stillness can it reveal the truth of who you are. The Buddha once compared the restless mind to a monkey, always jumping, never satisfied, grabbing one branch after another. We've all felt that monkey inside us, worrying about the future, regretting the past, reacting to every small irritation. But here's the secret. When you stop chasing, when you stop fighting, when you breathe into the moment exactly as it is, the monkey grows quiet. And in that silence, you no longer feel like a prisoner of life. You feel like its master. Modern society tells us to always do more, achieve more, prove more. But have you noticed that the more you chase, the emptier you often feel? That's because fulfillment isn't found in the noise of constant striving. Fulfillment is born in the silence of awareness, in the simple act of sitting with yourself without distraction, without judgment. True power doesn't come from controlling the world outside you. It comes from mastering the world within you. Imagine someone insults you. The ordinary reaction is anger, defense, retaliation. But when your heart is anchored in stillness, their words become like arrows shot into water. They sink without harm. You remain unshaken, not because you're cold, but because you've discovered a strength beyond ego. Stillness is not about sitting in a cave or withdrawing from life. It's about carrying an unshakable calm into every storm. It's about walking into the chaos of daily life with a mind so steady that nothing can control you. When you know this kind of stillness, you don't run away from life. You meet it fully, completely, without fear. And here is the most surprising truth. Stillness is not something you create. It's not something you earn. It's always here underneath the noise. It's the quiet space between your thoughts, the pause between your breaths, the silence that has been waiting for you all along. Once you realize that, every moment becomes an opportunity to return home to yourself. This journey is not about theories or complicated philosophies. It's about a lived experience, about rediscovering a wisdom that has been whispering inside you since the day you were born. The path begins where you are right now, with your breath, with your awareness, with the willingness to pause and listen to the silence beneath the noise. So as we begin, remember this. The real power lies not in rushing, not in fighting, not in controlling, but in being deeply, fearlessly still. And from that stillness, an entirely new way of seeing life begins to unfold. When you hear the word detachment, it might sound cold, almost heartless, like cutting yourself off from the people you love or the life you've built. But in truth, detachment is not about rejecting life. It's about learning how to embrace it fully without being enslaved by it. Think about how tightly we hold on to things, possessions, relationships, status, even ideas about who we are. We grip them with fear, terrified that if we lose them, we'll lose ourselves. But here's the hidden truth. The tighter you hold on, the more fragile you become. The more you cling, the easier life can hurt you. Detachment is not indifference, it's freedom. It's standing in the middle of the storm without being blown away. Imagine holding sand in your hand. Clench your fist and the grains slip away. Open your palm and the sand rests easily. Life is just like that. When you hold it with fear, you lose it. When you hold it with openness, you can finally enjoy it. In Buddhist teachings, attachment is often described as one of the roots of suffering. We cling to pleasure, we resist pain, and we crave permanence in a world that is always changing. That's why disappointment cuts so deep, because we expected things to last forever. Detachment doesn't deny love or beauty or joy. It simply reminds us that these things are gifts, not possessions. They are to be experienced, not owned. Think of a parent who watches their child grow. A detached parent doesn't love less. In fact, they love more freely, more unselfishly. They guide, they nurture, but they understand that their child is not theirs to control. Detachment gives love space to breathe. It transforms it from possession into compassion. And what about pain? We resist it, we fight it, we curse it. But the Buddha taught that suffering comes not just from pain itself, but from our refusal to accept it. Detachment is the courage to face pain without being crushed by it. It is the understanding that pain arises, stays for a while, and then passes. Just like joy, just like sorrow, just like every single moment in life. When you begin to practice detachment, something incredible happens. You stop living like a slave to circumstances. You stop reacting blindly to every rise and fall. You discover a deeper strength, a stability that doesn't depend on the outside world. Imagine losing a job, ending a relationship, or facing rejection. Most people collapse, but someone who has tasted detachment can look at the loss and say, "This too shall pass, and I remain whole." Detachment doesn't make you weaker, it makes you unbreakable. It allows you to walk through life with open hands and an open heart, knowing that whatever comes, comes. Whatever goes, goes, and you remain free. Stillness was the first step. Detachment is the second. Because once you know how to be still, you begin to see clearly what's worth holding onto and what's keeping you chained. And in letting go, you don't lose power. You gain it. You rise above fear, above clinging, above the fragile ego. And with that newfound strength, another door opens. One that reveals how awareness itself becomes the sharpest sword to cut through illusion. Every day you walk through a world filled with emotions, opinions, and energies that are not your own. A friend's anger, a coworker's frustration, a stranger's rudeness. These things often feel like arrows piercing straight into your heart. Before you know it, their storm has become your storm. Their negativity has turned into your suffering. But here lies a profound practice. Learn to observe without absorbing. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a busy street. Cars race by, some loud, some fast, some reckless. You don't chase them. You don't throw yourself in front of them. You simply watch them pass. Thoughts and emotions are the same. They rush in and out of your mind, but you don't need to catch every single one. You don't need to let them define you. The Buddha once said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Someone's words may sting for a moment, but it is your absorption of that pain, your replaying of it, your clinging to it that keeps the wound alive. When you observe instead of absorb, you allow pain to pass through you like wind through an open window. Nothing lingers, nothing sticks. Observation doesn't mean apathy. It means awareness. It means standing in the middle of life with your eyes wide open, seeing everything clearly, but refusing to let what is not yours weigh down your spirit. Think of a mirror. A mirror reflects everything placed before it, but it never holds onto the image. Clouds, sunlight, shadows, it reflects them all, then lets them go. That's the power of observation. When someone insults you, instead of absorbing their bitterness, observe the pain behind their words. See their suffering, their insecurity, their longing for control. Suddenly, their attack no longer feels personal. You realize it's their storm, not yours. You can choose not to carry it. Observation also transforms how you relate to your own thoughts. You might think, "I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm not good enough." But through awareness, you see these not as truths, but as passing clouds in the vast sky of your mind. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," you say, "Anxiety is here." Instead of saying, "I am angry," you say, "Anger has arisen." Do you see the difference? One identity traps you, the other sets you free. This is where detachment deepens. In Chapter 2, you learn to let go. Here, you learn not to pick up what isn't meant for you in the first place. You don't need to absorb every emotion, every fear, every judgment. You can witness them, learn from them, and release them. And as you master this art of observation, your heart becomes lighter, your mind becomes clearer, and your spirit becomes untouchable. The storms of the world may rage, but you, like the mountain, remain still. And from that stillness, from that freedom, something even greater begins to awaken. The courage to accept life exactly as it is. Life is always rushing forward. Deadlines, conversations, decisions. You're expected to respond instantly, to keep moving, to never stop. And yet, the most transformative power you will ever discover is not in constant motion, but in the sacred space of the pause. The pause is where wisdom lies. Think about the last time someone said something that made your blood boil. Your first instinct might have been to react, to defend yourself, to lash out, to prove them wrong. But what if, just for a moment, you didn't? What if you allowed a pause between their words and your response? In that space, clarity rises. In that space, you choose your action instead of being controlled by impulse. The Buddha compared the mind to a wild horse. If you let it run unchecked, it drags you wherever it wants. But with a single pull of the reins, a pause, you regain control. You remember that you are not the storm of your thoughts, but the rider guiding them. Pausing doesn't make you weak, it makes you powerful. Because in the pause, you are no longer a prisoner of habit. You break the cycle of automatic reactions. You reclaim your freedom. The pause can be as small as a single breath. One inhale, one exhale before you speak, before you decide, before you act. That single breath can save a relationship, prevent a mistake, or reveal a truth you would have missed in the rush of emotion. Think of the archer. Before releasing the arrow, there is always a pause. A moment of stillness, of focus, of alignment. That pause is what gives the arrow its precision. In life, your pause is what gives your actions their wisdom. When you practice pausing, you begin to notice the world differently. A sunset that you used to rush past suddenly stops you in your tracks. A conversation that would have triggered anger now opens the door to understanding. The pause turns ordinary moments into sacred ones. And the beauty is this: the pause is always available. It costs nothing. It requires no special training. All it takes is the willingness to stop, breathe, and allow space before moving forward. The pause is not an absence, it is presence. It is the place where your awareness gathers strength, where your detachment grows deeper, where your observation sharpens. It is the bridge between stillness and action. And when you live with the power of the pause, you are no longer swept away by life. You walk with intention. You speak with clarity, you act with wisdom, and from this pause, a new realization unfolds. The understanding that acceptance, not resistance, is what truly sets you free. Anger, resentment, jealousy. These emotions burn hot like fire. And when they rise, our first instinct is to throw more fuel on them. We replay the insult in our minds. We justify our rage. We tell ourselves why we're right and they're wrong. But every thought, every word, every action in anger is like pouring oil onto the flames. The fire grows and soon it consumes us. What if, instead of feeding the fire, you simply let it burn out? Fire needs fuel to survive. Without wood, without oil, without oxygen, it cannot last. Emotions are the same. They rise, they flare, but if you don't feed them, if you don't keep replaying the story, if you don't keep adding judgment, the flames die on their own. The Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. And isn't that true? How many times have you carried anger long after the moment has passed? The person who hurt you may have already forgotten, but inside, your fire is still raging. And the only one being burned is you. Letting the fire burn out doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. It means you allow them to rise and fall naturally without clinging. Anger, like all emotions, is energy. It moves through you like a storm through the sky. If you resist it, it grows stronger. If you fight it, it fights back. But if you step aside, observe, and let it run its course, it passes and clarity returns. Think of a candle. When you stop feeding the flame, it doesn't explode. It simply flickers and dies, leaving behind peace, leaving behind space. Your mind works the same way. And here's the most empowering truth. Every time you let the fire burn out instead of fueling it, you train your mind to return to peace faster. You teach your heart that it doesn't need to cling to anger to feel strong. True strength comes from calm, not rage. Life will always bring sparks, conflict, misunderstanding, injustice. But sparks only become wildfires if you keep feeding them. You always have a choice: add fuel or let it fade. And when you learn to let the fire burn out, you'll notice something extraordinary. Beneath the ashes lies a deeper warmth, a gentler light, the quiet glow of compassion. Because when anger dissolves, what remains is understanding. From this understanding, you discover another truth. Silence, not reaction, often speaks the loudest. When the fire of anger fades, when the storm of emotions finally settles, what remains is silence. Not the silence of emptiness, not the silence of weakness, but the silence of wisdom. Silence has its own language, a language more powerful than words. Think about the times you've been comforted not by someone's advice, but by their quiet presence. No speeches, no explanations, just the warmth of being there. That is the voice of silence. In our world, everyone wants to speak, to argue, to prove their point. Noise fills every space, on the streets, on our screens, even in our mind, but wisdom is rarely found in noise. Wisdom emerges in silence, because silence allows us to listen not just to others but to life itself. The Buddha often taught through silence. When asked questions that came from pride or arrogance, he sometimes chose not to answer. Why? Because some truths cannot be forced into words. They must be realized in stillness, in the silence of direct experience. Silence doesn't mean the absence of communication. It means deeper communication. Words can be twisted, misunderstood, forgotten, but silence speaks straight to the heart. It says, "I see you, I understand, I am here." Have you noticed how silence disarms conflict? When someone throws anger at you, silence can be stronger than 1,000 replies. It shows that you are not shaken, that you are anchored in something deeper than ego. Silence is not surrender, it is mastery, and silence is also the greatest teacher. In silence, you notice the rise and fall of your breath. In silence, you hear the whispers of your intuition. In silence, you discover truths that no book, no lecture, no argument could ever give you. Think of the stillness of a mountain. It doesn't shout, yet it inspires awe. Think of the quiet of the night sky. It doesn't argue, yet it reveals infinity. The wise understand this. The most profound truths often need no words. But silence is not only external, it is internal. An inner quiet that follows you even in the middle of chaos. A silence that lives beneath the noise of thoughts, beneath the chatter of the mind. When you touch that silence, you carry peace wherever you go. And when you live from this silence, something extraordinary happens. Your words, when you do speak, carry more weight, because they are born not from impulse but from truth. People listen, not because you are loud, but because your words are rooted in silence. The language of the wise is not about saying more. It's about knowing when nothing needs to be said at all. And from this silence, compassion begins to blossom. Because when the mind is quiet, the heart can finally hear. Silence opens the door, but what you find on the other side is acceptance. True acceptance is not passive. It's not giving up. It's the key that unlocks freedom from suffering. We spend so much of our lives fighting reality. We wish the past had been different. We resist the present moment. We fear the future. This constant struggle is like swimming against a river. You exhaust yourself, but the current still carries you. Acceptance is the moment you stop fighting the river and allow it to carry you. Not because you're weak, but because you finally understand that resistance only multiplies pain. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when we want life to be other than it is. Pain itself is part of life, but suffering, that deep, ongoing ache, is born from our refusal to accept what is. Think about a rainy day. You can curse the clouds, complain about the wet ground, and wish for sunshine. Or you can accept the rain, feel its coolness, watch its rhythm, even see the beauty in it. The rain will fall either way, but your heart can remain free. Acceptance doesn't mean liking everything that happens. It doesn't mean approving of injustice or pretending that loss doesn't hurt. It means acknowledging reality as it is without adding layers of resistance, without clinging to how you think it should be. Because when you stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening," you create space to respond with clarity, with compassion, with wisdom. Imagine breaking a glass. If you fight reality, you'll suffer. Why did this happen? It shouldn't have fallen. Now everything is ruined. But if you accept the moment, you simply see, the glass is broken. From there, you can clean it up and move on. Acceptance doesn't erase pain, but it ends unnecessary suffering. And here's the paradox. The more you accept, the more power you gain. Because acceptance doesn't trap you, it frees you. Free to act wisely instead of react blindly. Free to find peace even in chaos. Free to discover joy in the middle of imperfection. Acceptance is not resignation. It is transformation. It takes the raw materials of life, loss, change, uncertainty, and turns them into stepping stones on your path. Think of a lotus flower. It grows in the mud, not in clean water. But it doesn't resist the mud, doesn't curse its roots. It accepts the mud fully, and from that acceptance it blooms into beauty. You are no different. When you practice acceptance, life no longer feels like a constant battle. Even suffering becomes a teacher. Even pain becomes a guide. And slowly you begin to see, nothing in life is truly against you. Everything is part of the unfolding. From acceptance arises a deeper peace, a peace that no circumstance can take away. And in that peace you become ready for the next step, cultivating compassion, not just for yourself, but for every being that walks this same path of impermanence. Acceptance brings peace, but peace is not the end of the journey. Once your heart is steady, the question becomes, where will you direct your energy? Because energy, when scattered, is weak. But energy, when focused, becomes unstoppable. Think about sunlight. When it spreads across the earth, it warms everything it touches. But when that same light is concentrated through a magnifying glass, it creates fire. Your mind works in the same way. Scattered attention creates confusion, distraction, exhaustion. But focused attention creates clarity, momentum, and power. In the modern world, distraction is everywhere. Notifications, endless scrolling, constant noise pulling you in 100 directions. And the more divided your attention, the more powerless you feel. You start tasks but never finish them. You speak but don't listen. You live but don't fully experience. The cost of scattered energy is a life half-lived. The Buddha compared the focused mind to a sharpened blade. A dull knife cannot cut through anything, but a sharp one slices effortlessly. When your energy is focused, obstacles that once seemed overwhelming suddenly become manageable. Problems that once felt heavy begin to dissolve. Focused energy doesn't just apply to tasks, it applies to your presence. When you listen with full attention, people feel seen. When you give yourself completely to the moment, life feels alive. When you put your whole heart into even the smallest action, sweeping the floor, drinking tea, walking down the street, those simple acts become sacred. And here's the secret. Focus is not about forcing your mind. It's about choosing where your awareness rests. It's about training your mind gently but firmly to return again and again to what matters. Just as a musician trains their hands until the instrument becomes an extension of their soul, you can train your mind until focus becomes natural. Consider a river. When it overflows in every direction, it floods and destroys. But when channeled, it turns turbines and generates immense power. Your life force is that river. When scattered, it leaves you drained. When directed, it carries you forward with unstoppable strength. And something extraordinary happens when you live with focused energy. You begin to touch mastery. Because mastery is not about talent alone. It's about consistent, focused attention. Whether in meditation, in work, or in love, the more fully you give yourself, the deeper and richer life becomes. Acceptance in Chapter 7 taught you how to stop fighting reality. Now, focused energy teaches you how to engage with reality fully without distraction. One releases resistance, the other gathers power. Together, they create a balance that transforms how you live. And as you learn to harness your energy with focus, you prepare yourself for the final step of this journey, the transformation of awareness itself into wisdom, where the self dissolves and only truth remains. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the shift becomes undeniable. Up until now, the practice may have felt like effort pausing before speaking, watching the fire of anger instead of feeding it, choosing silence over unnecessary noise. But here, something deeper awakens. What once required discipline begins to feel natural, as if the mind has been rewired, the heart softened, and the spirit expanded. Transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you truly are when you are no longer chained to reactivity. Think of a lake on a windy day. The waves crash, the surface breaks, and the water seems restless. That is the reactive mind, constantly stirred by outside forces. But when the wind calms, the lake returns to stillness, reflecting the sky like a mirror. This is self-mastery, the ability to remain clear, even when storms rage around you. Reaction is the default mode of survival. It is primitive, fast, and often destructive. Someone insults you, and before thought arrives, the sharpness of your words flies out like an arrow. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and your blood pressure spikes as if you've been personally attacked. This is reaction, automatic, unconscious, and often harmful. But when awareness enters the picture, something extraordinary happens. You create space. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of being controlled by emotion, you guide it. This is where anger, once your master, becomes your teacher. You begin to see its patterns clearly. The tightening in your chest, the rush of heat in your face, the way your thoughts scramble to defend the ego. But now, instead of being swept away, you simply watch. You do not deny it, and you do not obey it. You hold it in awareness until its grip weakens. Over time, the same situations that used to provoke you lose their power. What once felt like an uncontrollable fire is now just a passing spark. This transformation is subtle yet profound. It shows in the way you speak, measured, calm, intentional. It shows in your body, relaxed shoulders, and easy breath. It shows in your relationships, fewer conflicts, deeper understanding, and more harmony. You stop being a prisoner of circumstances and become the architect of your inner world. Self-mastery is not suppression. It is not about pretending you feel nothing. It is about holding your feelings with wisdom, allowing them to exist without letting them rule you. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. The waters rush by, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce. You do not try to stop the river. You do not jump in and get carried away. You stand firm, watching. That stillness is your power. As this transformation deepens, life begins to look different. The challenges remain, but they no longer break you. The insults, the disappointments, the losses, they still sting, but they no longer define you. You carry an unshakable presence, like a mountain rooted in the earth. People notice even if they cannot name it. They feel calmer around you, safer in your presence, as if your steadiness grants them permission to breathe. And the most beautiful part is this: what you once thought was effort now feels like freedom. No longer chained to endless reaction, you discover a new spaciousness inside yourself. It is not just peace, it is power. The power to choose, the power to direct your energy, the power to shape your life with intention. This is the alchemy of anger. What began as raw fire, threatening to destroy, has now been transformed into light, a fire that warms, illuminates, and guides. This is the gift of true practice, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. And as we draw closer to the final step of this journey, we will see how all these lessons, silence, detachment, observation, acceptance, and transformation, weave together into a single truth. A truth that reveals where real strength has always been hiding. Every path has a destination, yet the most profound journeys often bring us back to where we began, but with new eyes. From the very first step, we explored anger, its fire, its grip, its illusions. We walked through detachment, learned to observe without absorbing, embraced the pause, let the flames die out, discovered silence, accepted life as it is, focused our energy, and transformed reaction into self-mastery. And now, at the heart of it all, we arrive at the truth that was waiting quietly all along: peace. But this is not the fragile peace that depends on perfect circumstances. It is not the silence that comes only when the world stops disturbing us. No, this peace is deeper, indestructible, unshakable. It is the kind of peace no insult can touch, No loss can destroy, no storm can sweep away. It is the peace that remains when all else has been stripped away, the peace of knowing who you are beyond fear, beyond anger, beyond the ego's demands. Think of a candle placed inside a lantern. The winds may blow fiercely, yet the flame is protected, steady, and untouched. That is the peace you have cultivated on this path. It does not depend on whether people treat you kindly, whether life bends to your will, or whether everything goes your way. It is yours simply because you have discovered it within yourself. Anger loses its grip not because the world becomes softer, but because you have grown stronger. Challenges do not disappear. Your relationship to them changes. You no longer see them as enemies, but as invitations, opportunities to test the depth of your stillness, to sharpen your awareness, to return once more to the ground of your being. And from this place, nothing and no one has the power to steal your peace. This is the real victory, not over others, but over the restless mind that once ruled you. It is the quiet triumph of choosing freedom over reaction, wisdom over impulse, love over fear. And once you taste this peace, you will recognize it as your truest home. Life will continue to flow, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, beginnings and endings. But like the mountain rooted deep in the earth, you remain unmoved. Like the sky that holds every passing cloud yet is never stained by them, your essence stays clear and vast. You may smile more easily, forgive more quickly, and live more gently, for you now carry something that cannot be broken. And so, as this journey closes, remember this: peace is not something you chase, nor something you wait for the world to give you. Peace is something you choose again and again, in every pause, in every silence, in every moment you refuse to be mastered by anger. It has always been within you, waiting patiently, like a timeless friend. Hold onto this truth as you walk back into the noise of life. Let it remind you that while the storms may come, the calm you carry is greater. This is the peace that cannot be taken away. This is the strength that was with you all along. And this is your freedom. If these words touched your heart, let them be a gentle reminder that peace is always within you. And if this journey resonated with you, I invite you to stay connected with us here at Zen Buddhism Wisdom. Subscribe to the channel so together we can continue exploring the timeless teachings of the Buddha and uncovering the wisdom that helps us live with more clarity, compassion, and freedom. May you carry this peace into your days, share it with those around you, and return here whenever you need guidance, stillness, or simply a reminder that you are never alone on this path.